Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the continuation of 2004. We're getting there. We're very slowly crawling towards the end of this insane year of wrestling. And we make a stop for Taboo Tuesday. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a WWE pay-per-view on a Tuesday. And as we're recording this on Valentine's Day, it seems very apt that we're covering a pay-per-view that is about schoolgirls, rape, molestation, getting black people to undress, and very severely injured men almost climaxing at the right time. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope you're having a great time. You won't be listening to this on Valentine's Day, but I hope you had a Drake Maverick-style Valentine's Day. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, well, go and check out social media. You're welcome. Steve Neal, welcome to Taboo Tuesday.
Yep, Taboo Tuesday, an experiment does a midweek pay-per-view with schoolgirls work? And the answer is no. No, it does not. This is not a financial success. This had, 3,500 people in attendance for a WWE pay-per-view. That is fucking appalling. Absolutely appalling. But this is basically the precursor to what would become Cyber Sunday. So the fans got to vote on the brand spanking new internet.
Sure they did.
Stipulations and rivalries. JR did a podcast on this pay-per-view earlier in this year. Earlier in 2019. And he thought that it was like kayfabe, that the voting and stuff was real. Although the fact, obviously, you could keep voting during the show was probably bollocks. He thought that it was actually quite genuine. I would say that's a load of absolute horseshit, depending on how the show actually went, certain portions. But
it does have that vibe, though. It does have that vibe of something where, like, they very much, you could tell that they staggered. Yeah, they staggered the voting process. You could tell that so that people would pick certain things. So, maybe they just kind of, it wouldn't surprise me if it was real voting and then they just kind of modified it if it didn't come out the way they wanted it to, which is probably what they went with. But yeah, I mean, it's a kayfabe show, mate. Come on, like. Also, it's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, land of cheese.
It got 174,000 pay-per-view buys apparently, which is not really a lot. So midweek pay-per-view, 174,000.
Wow. I mean, to be fair, like when they just before the network became a thing, they were bottoming out at about, I think it was about 75,000. But yeah, considering the time frame, that's actually not good at all. You think in 2001, for instance, they were averaging 600,000. Pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, this is not good. So the idea was this is a Raw pay-per-view because we're still in the branded pay-per-view era. So this was a Raw pay-per-view. Right? So you control the fate of Raw superstars, the World Heavyweight Championship, and the course of history. So man, let's fucking tear into this. You know what? Actually, before we talk about the event, we need to talk about the dark match before this fucking show. Where dark match. Sergeant Slaughter defeated Muhammad Hassan, accompanied by Daivari, by disqualification. Fucking hell. This is ridiculous. It's fucking amazing.
How does Muhammad Hassan, the beacon of Arab hope, fucking job out to the American oppressor, Sergeant Slaughter? You're not fooling any of us, you terrorists. You're the terrorist, America. We're just fucking simply there to fucking enjoy the ride. Muhammad Hassan.
Poor old Daivari as well at ringside. What a man.
Are you slightly Middle Eastern? Then perhaps you'd like to be manager Muhammad Hassan. Is he Arabian? Actually, he's from Detroit, but never mind.
The time for this match as well, not applicable. Fucking incredible.
That means
I love dark matches. They're amazing.
I'm going to dig that one out, and that's going on our Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen. You can look forward to that, and you can thank me later. The technical masterpiece that is Sergeant Slaughter versus Muhammad Hassan. And if you thought that was a stunted start to the pay-per-view, we have Jonathan Coachman, who is, of course, the master of ceremony, so to speak, for this nonsense. And we're going to decide right now what the Divas attire will be in the Fulfill Your Fantasy Battle Royal. This is your representation of women, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, and believe me, there's more where that came from. So yeah, we find out that it'll be schoolgirls. The options were nurses, French maids, and schoolgirls, and a whopping 53% of the audience, surprise, wanted them to dress as underage civilians, because I'd like to point out that in America, schoolgirls, like, school isn't like a thing until you're like, I think you're like 14 or something, and then you go to like college and then university. It's like, fuck you. What the hell is wrong with you people? Well, it's America, and also it's Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
In America, when they're like, right, the age of consent is 21. When do you finish school? 10. What do you want me to dress up as? Schoolgirl.
Japan.
Okay. There's something not quite right here, but okay. Yes, we're going to. We have school. We'll get into the schoolgirl battle royal because
for that match.
It gets unbelievably glitter all over that shit.
So yeah, opening the show proper is the Intercontinental Championship match. Chris Jericho defends his belt against. Who will it be? Will it be
one of
Batista?
15
Shelton
people.
Benjamin. This is the veritable who's that of wrestling. Batista, Shelton Benjamin, Christian, Hurricane Helms, Rodney Mack, Maven, Chumpalumbo, William Regal, Stephen Richards, Rhino, Rosie Tajiri, Tyson Tonka Truck, and the coach, Jonathan Coachman, because Val Venus is not available because he got violated by Kane. Not the first person to be violated by Kane this month. State of your picks. Also, I love this. So Shelton Benjamin wins the vote with 37%. Second is others at 36%.
We can only have 4 people on a Twitter poll, damn it.
My philosophy is, if the others had got 38%, does that mean that the other 14 guys can then all challenge at once for Chris Jericho's IC title? Can you imagine? It's a 14-on-1 handicap match. Have some of that new Canadian shit. Oh, fucking incredible. So much better. So yeah, Shelton Benjamin versus Chris Jericho. It's alright. Wasn't great, but it was alright. There was a surprise though, wasn't there? There was a real big surprise here because Shelton Benjamin won the Intercontinental Championship. I was like, what? Couldn't believe it. I thought Jericho was nailed on, especially on a pay-per-view of this quality, to retain his belt. But Shelton Benjamin wins in what is ultimately actually quite a disappointing match. I'd love to be able to say to you guys, oh yeah, this is a technical classic between two great wrestlers, but actually wasn't that great.
It wasn't at all, and this is another one of the fundamental concept of we're going to pick an opponent last minute. So the match they have is cold. You know, there's no build to it. So if you'd have had a match with Christian, where they've been in this rivalry for quite a long time, or a match with Batista, who's been having matches with recently, all right, probably been a bit boring because we've seen it before, but at least there's a history there and a rivalry, and the fans could have been a bit hot for it. But fans didn't give a shit about this at all. Like, the match was only okay. There's no chemistry. There's no heat coming in. It's completely cold. I thought, yeah, it was really underwhelming and really disappointing. Completely disappointing. There wasn't really a story told. It was just, these two are both good. They'll try and do some moves, and then we'll go home after. It was like over 10 minutes as well, and only needed to be about 5 or 6, to be honest. It felt like it dragged. And that's weird to say, because, as you said, two real great wrestlers, but didn't feel like it watching this.
Yeah, boring by the numbers. 2 out of 5 gave it, and that says a lot. Shelton Benjamin wins the Intercontinental Championship with a T-bone suplex. World Heavyweight Championship contender promos. So you know it's HBK, Benoit, or Edge. Who are you going to pick to face Triple H later? HBK, carrying a legitimate meniscus tear in his knee, wins with 39% of the vote, and Edge, well, he's not very happy about that. So it is what it is. Benoit seems to be less caring because he has the charisma of a walnut, and ultimately it sets up what will be a rivalry later down the line. I actually thought Edge was one of the real shining lights of character on this pay-per-view. Actually, you could finally starting to see what would become the rated R superstar as he looks to cement his heel turn slowly but surely. It's now time for the Fulfill Your Fantasy Divas Battle Royal. For the WWE Women's Championship, ladies and gentlemen. And this isn't just any old battle royal, because women can be eliminated by being thrown through the ropes. You know why?
Just out of the ring.
Because women aren't as athletic and can't go over the top rope. The only time they should be going over the top is when they sit on Vince McMahon's face, god damn it. It's just embarrassing. And if you don't like, we've spoken about how, women didn't get much time. I love it how people are triggered by, the Bella's only got 2 minutes. That's a disgrace, really. Well, you should watch this then if you think that's a disgrace to women's wrestling. Trish Stratus. Jesus. I could hear Steve from here. I assure you of that. The sweat. Literally, the storm we've had that just passed through, I'm pretty sure that was just from Steve's brow, all that sweat thundering on. Jazz, by the way, looking like the world's toughest schoolgirl, rips the sleeves off as well, which I thought was great. Nydia looking like utter trailer trash. I really wanted somebody I just wanted to see The Rock's head appear and go, biggest piece of trailer trash walking Godspeed her. Gail Kim, that's all I've written down here. Molly Holly, who by the way, right, so Molly Holly comes down. I thought she looked quite hot actually. She had the long socks and the heels, like she made an effort. Not good enough apparently for JR and Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler insinuates that he wants to go back to kindergarten when he notices all these young schoolgirls, wildly underestimating what kindergarten actually is. Congratulations, you massive paedophile. And JR says that Molly reminds him of a librarian in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Classy.
Yeah.
Classy.
This is just, so pedo.
Also, Victoria is in this match, and Stacy Keibler. My God. That was even, I was just like, Jesus! I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. That is unfortunately where our enthusiasm for the match stops, because this is a humongous pile of horse manure with very little wrestling, very little quality whatsoever. Victoria seems to be the only one who's taken it even remotely seriously, wearing knee pads and boots, to complement her outfit. She just seemed like she was having a bit of fun, bless her. She always had a good sense of humour. But yeah, considering that you've got Molly Holly, Trish, and Victoria in this match, and Jazz as well, who is a preeminent tough motherfucker, terrible. Fucking terrible. And Gail Kim. There's a plethora of legends in here. The state of it, 0.5 out of 5. However, Stacy Keibler is a schoolgirl, 7 stars.
It went over 5 minutes as well, this match, which is about 4.5 minutes too long, because it was just, the only purpose of it is to see a bunch of women bending over the middle rope or the top rope to be eliminated and falling on the floor with their legs spread and you seeing their thong or whatever. It was just like, now don't get me wrong, I'm a red-blooded heterosexual male, and as if fucking gay people's blood is like grey or something. It's such a stupid fucking comment.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's so weird. Like Trish, yes please. Trish looks fucking amazing, and as you say, Nydia's just got massive baps that are like, the shirt is unbuttoned to like her belly button, and there's a lot of very, very beautiful women in this who are being sexualized, and they do look sexy. Like, there's no doubt there is a massive amount of sex appeal in this ring, and that's what they were going for. So on that, box ticked, and I'm sure that for a lot of people, box licked. But this was just fucking awful, and just every time we've come on, we've been pretty, like, with a few exceptions of some good women's wrestling matches, the vast majority has been this sort of absolute fucking nonsense. But yeah, as you say, Stacy Keibler did look ridiculous. And Trish wins by eliminating Molly Holly to retain a women's title. Molly Holly in there last, thinking that the classic. She thought she'd eliminated Trish, but Trish held on and survived. And, Molly eliminates Stacy Keibler and thinks she's won, and then Trish sneaks up and eliminates Molly Holly. We've never seen that before or since. Just fucking nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But, Jerry Lawler in this is the most perverse, paedophilic fuck you have ever heard. Like, Jerry Lawler had a place in the Attitude Era, and it fitted with the product of the time, and the fan base of the time, and the mainstream culture of the time, of everything being like hypersexualized and all the rest of it, okay? But this, even though it's still in a sexualized era, obviously, probably more so, actually, listening to it in 2020 is fucking cringeworthy. As you say, him going, I want to go back to kindergarten if this is going to be the schoolgirls, like, excuse me. You want to be spying on 5-year-old girls? Like, is that what we're getting at here? This is ridiculous. Him sitting there saying, I wish I was the principal of this school so that I could dish out discipline. And then talking about his personal growth, obviously a boner joke. Like, fuck's sake, it was awful. Really hard, like, really horrible to listen to. It just makes you feel a bit sick because literally he's just talking about fantasizing about children for the 5.5 minutes. Longer than that when you take in the entrances. It was literally, because he just goes, oh my God, every time someone makes an entrance. It's insane. It's fucking insane. He is in uber dickhead mode throughout. But anyway, let's move on to abortions and miscarriages.
Fucking right, mate. This is the money. This is the money portion of the show. So we get a Lara Siston's promo, wah wah, and then we get Kane. It wasn't my fault. Every time I think this can't get any better, we are feasted upon with something even more special. Like I bet the Raws were fantastic for this nonsense. Every time we fucking come back to pay-per-view, something else has happened involving this rivalry. So, Matt Hardy's no longer in the equation, but I tell you who is, Gene Snitsky. A little bit of backstory. Gene Snitsky arrives essentially as a kind of dark match guy to face Kane, and you think, he's gonna squash this surprisingly large individual. During the match, Snitsky hits Kane in the back with a chair, and this leads to him landing. This is after their dark match. They actually had a repeat match. I believe it's the second match, because Kane was like, what the fuck, this guy's actually big and hench. And he hits him with a steel chair in the back, and he lands on Lita, causing a miscarriage. Hooray! This leads ultimately to a face turn, because nothing says I'm a face like landing on my wife and giving her a miscarriage. Hooray!
The wife that I stole and forced to marry me after raping her and impregnating her.
Face turn. Hooray! Rape. Hooray! This is what makes people cry. This is why your creative team cries, Vince. For fuck's sake. So Gene Snitsky is in rare mega heel territory, and as if causing a miscarriage accidentally wasn't his fault, he has also decided that it would be a really good idea to violently assault Lita, violently assault Kane with a pipe. Oh, the connotations of that. And then he also punted a fake baby into the crowd. Hooray! This is fucking incredible.
When I finish with your husband, he's going to be as dead as your baby.
That is a legitimate line, ladies and gentlemen, from this rivalry. It's in the promo. We're going to have to splice it along with it so people can genuinely just feast their eyes on this clusterfuck. So, which weapon was this? I love this. It involves a rapist versus a man who hurt the rapist and caused a miscarriage of a woman who was raped, and abortions and everything else. I'll tell you what, let's vote on what weapon they'll use. How fucking grotesque can you get? So would it be a steel chair, a pipe, or a chain? I like how they tried desperately to build up the pipe and the chair, but ultimately it's the chain with 41% of the vote. By the way, it's no disqualification. Utterly fucking pointless. Utterly pointless.
Yeah, right. Right. So they do. It's no like JR says. There's no disqualification for the weapon they are using. So if they pick a chain, they're not disqualified for using a chain. But they use a steel chair. But no, don't worry about that. Although that was one of the options, and he used it, so therefore he should be disqualified. But he's not. Man, he's fucking so stupid and carny and rubbish. The match isn't very good, as much as it is meaty boss. I hated it. I thought it was fucking shit.
This is the evolution of Test and Kane.
This is awful. And this is... Snitsky just beats the shit out of Kane for like 15 minutes and then beats him. It's like just the longest squash match in the world. And they decided they're going to really put Snitsky over and push him to the moon, which is so weird. And to be honest, I'm actually surprised they didn't do like coat hanger, fucking vodka bottle on a fucking pole match, like some ridiculous like home-made abortion weapons on a fucking to choose from. That would have been morning after pill, coat hanger, vodka on a pole fucking match. Like, it's ridiculous. This fucking match is terrible. But the whole thing around it, it's just so unbelievably carny. Like, so carny. that it's ridiculous. And you know what actually started to really grind on me as well is Coach being the the MC does this thing of let's ask the 12 people that are in attendance in this crowd what they think for each of these votes. So like if they cheer or if they boo, like that'll be the popular opinion, and then we'll see if the online vote tallies up. The opinion of the people in the crowd don't matter. It's not factored in at all to the voting, so it's completely pointless. It's just pantomime. And it's like, do you want to cheer for a pipe? Hey. Do you want to cheer for a chair? Hey. Do you want to cheer for a chain? No one cares. Shut your mouth, Jonathan Coachman. Yeah, and then Lita is feeling sympathetic for Kane because Kane is defending the honour of her dead baby. The highlight of this match is the guy in the crowd with a sign of vote for, and you can tick a box. Do you want to vote for pro-life or do you want to vote for pro-Snitsky? It's fucking amazing. Oh, honestly, my favourite sign ever.
Get a screenshot of that.
Did you love Snitsky versus Kane for the honour of dead fetus?
This is... I'll never be asked a question like that again. And that's what I love about this podcast. This podcast is fucking incredible. I'm never stopping this podcast. As long as Manic Mondays exist, fuck everything else. This is one of those matches where it's so bad, but I'm so enamored with how stupid the storyline is. I'm like, I just, for some reason, I turned into a fucking 2-year-old watching this, and I was like, go get him, Snitsky! I was just being a tosser throughout this whole match, being a dickhead, just cheering for the nonsense of it all, and thinking, you know what, I kind of sit there and think, oh, how grotesque are the audience? But then I think, oh, I would have killed to have seen this live. Like, to be able to shit-can this in person would be a truly special and monumentous occasion. These fans are shitbags at the best of times, but... Yeah, you're right. It's actually a massive squash. Kane barely gets in any offense. He just gets fucking the shite kicked out of him. And the one thing it did do is it got Snitsky over as a monster. But ultimately, he gets over by being, a monster with, baby kicking tendencies. The one thing I'm thrilled about, however, is because, of course, on the other side of things, on the blue side, Heidenreich has now made his appearance again. And I'm very much excited to when Heidenreich and Gene Snitsky have a minor collision later down the line. I'm not sure if it's at this Survivor Series or the next one, but there's this incredible promo where he's just like, I like your poetry. And he's like, I like what you do to babies. It's horrifying and funny at the same time. It's just ridiculous. I don't think I've covered a more ridiculous thing. This is a company that is engaged in necrophilia and coffin stealing and heart attacks that killed men who had too much sex with much younger women and lesbian antics to try and, stop having sex with said old men. Everything you could possibly imagine which is offensive to somebody in some form or fashion. Incest, snuff films involving fathers and daughters battering each other at no mercy. And yet this, for me, is the pinnacle of nonsense, because it's about 3 or 4 months worth of amazing stuff. Like, it just doesn't stop. You think, wow, how can we top ourselves here? Vince McMahon is definitely on coke at this point, and I personally believe that after the next match, I have even more evidence to suggest that is the case. But I did give this match 2 out of 5. I also really enjoyed Edge's promo backstage when he basically kicked off and he was asked. Yeah, I also love the fact that, Todd Grisham asked him and says, because basically the 2 guys who lost that vote, Edge and Benoit, will have a tag team title match, and it's a consolation prize, and it is. And I love the fact that Edge's character, rightfully so, is infuriated that he has to wrestle for that instead. Because ultimately, if you were given a choice, it's pretty obvious which one you would want, and especially when the guy who got picked over you is basically a cripple. So actually, there's a lot of truth to Edge's character, and I like that because WWE's not really in the nuances of tweeners much, other than Austin. They don't really have good tweeners or people that they leave it up to you to have a kind of opinion on. Whereas Edge, you could see that building, and that's what made Rated R Superstar so cool. Even when he was a heel, a lot of people loved him because he was just so different and so polarizing, and this is kind of the start of it, which is nice. However, Eugene versus Eric Bischoff. Oh, I can't wait for this. This is amazing. So what will be the stipulation for the loser of this match? We'll find out. But first, let's have this incredibly athletic affair. Eugene versus his uncle, kayfabe of course, Eric Bischoff. They could not wait to get over the fact Eric Bischoff is a master of karate. Am I right, Jerry? Oh dear. Yeah, in the same way that question mark is on NWA, mate. Behave yourself. I'm told he is legitimately a karate expert. I find it hard to believe. The form on his kicks was atrocious, just saying. But yeah, this is, do you know what? I don't give a shit about this match. Eugene wins, surprise. However, it's the stipulations afterwards and the ensuing nonsense.
Yeah, so we end up with so you could either dress him up, you could either have him wear a dress, have to have him be the Eugene's servant for like a week or some shit.
Yeah, a month.
A month, that was it.
Fun.
Or he would have to have his head shaved bald. And the fans have gone for the head shave, right? So they've gone with the head shave, and Coach decides he's going to come down and protect his man. He's going to protect Bischoff and not honour the fans' vote. So he's like, oh, don't worry about it. You can be a servant, Eugene's servant, for 5 minutes. That's what we'll decide to do. All you got to do is carry his bags to the car. That's it. Then you're done. Like that's it. That'll do. That's enough humiliation. But then, down comes the chairman of the board. Vince McMahon is not going to have the fans' wishes go unnoticed. So he comes down, quads intact. He power walks to the ring like he's got a fucking dick in his asshole. He is taking no shit. And down he comes, forces fucking Bischoff to get in the chair, or he's going to sack him on the spot. Bischoff starts walking out, fucking fire you. He fucking goes full on fucking Vince. And Eugene starts shaping Bischoff's head. Not happy with doing it at the Clippers, so he gets out giant comedy scissors, giant shears, but starts clipping off the locks, the 90s curtains of Bischoff. And meanwhile, while this is going on, because it's taking a bit of time, Vince is like, right, Coachman, you have decided that you're going to stand against the will of the people. I'm not having that. You can put on the dress. That's the forfeit. You can do the rest of the show as MC in a woman's dress because cross-dressing is money. So he's fucking screaming at Coach to get undressed. Take your shirt off. Get your pants off, goddammit. Get them off. Get them off. Fucking amazing. He's literally the greatest thing that I've ever watched. Before turning back round and seeing that Bischoff's got some grey at his roots. And apparently he didn't know that Bischoff was dyeing his hair. So this is an authentic reaction so that he can take the piss out of Bischoff. Oh my God, he's dyeing his hair. What a phony son of a bitch. This fucking power walks off. It's one of the greatest segments in the history of wrestling. I will take this and This Is Your Life with The Rock and Mick Foley as two of the greatest segments in wrestling ever. This is my favourite Vince McMahon. I don't care what we think about Vince McMahon's booking. I don't care what we think about his creative. I don't care what we think about his obsession with props, John Moxley. I care about him mocking Bischoff and forcing Coachman to strip on global television. It's fucking amazing. Vince McMahon's a genius and I'll have no bad words said about it. This is fucking brilliant.
This is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the greatest segments in the history of WWE pay-per-view that nobody remembers. This is incredible. Nobody talks about this, and I'm going to splice the shit out of it and have it all over our social media and reap the rewards of us probably getting more cease and desist from WWE. I look forward to your litigation. There is an astonishing level of carny hilarity to this. Is just everything we joke about in Vince McMahon comes to true fruition in this incredible 10 minutes. He goes walking down and he's got the power. Like, God damn it. You son of a... He's like, he looks like he's just given birth. He's amazing. It just strutting down to the ring, like Steve says, with something up his arse. And it's, you know, the shaving of the head thing and that, for me, it's Jonathan Coachman who makes this money. Like, not only is Coachman's reactions incredible, because he just looks like this unbelievably whipped guy, but it's like Steve's not paraphrasing. He legitimately goes,
take your shirt off.
Oh, wait a minute. Do you know what's happening?
Take your shirt off. I'm going to take it off for you.
Take your pants off. He just screams at him. Take your pants. Take them off.
Now take your pants off.
What?
I just hope you're wearing underwear. Take off your pants.
Get your shirt off. And then, like, he puts he goes, put it on. Put on that dress. And he puts on the dress. And this is one of my favourite moments. So the dress is open and he hasn't, like, tied it out properly because, you know, that's a problem. And so Vince McMahon says, you're not a slut. Tie it up. Button it up. You're not a slut. Showing off your wares.
Now button it up. Don't be a slut. Button it up.
Yeah, you slut.
Got your business all hanging out. Button that damn thing up.
It's fucking incredible. I've never seen anything like it.
Is fucking brilliant.
You're a slut. It's so fucking brilliant. He's like, you're not a slut. You slut. Fuck, button it up. He's furious at that. Like, he's just like, put it away. And then he's like, and then he chases him out. He's actually like, he's like, what are you still doing here? Get out of here. And he chases him around the ring. He's like, I said, get, damn it.
Get your ass back up there where you belong. Get.
He's chasing him up the ramp. And then Coachman, in what is a brilliant little turn, which if you blink, you'll miss it. He kind of stops halfway up the ramp and then struts away and starts working it with the dress on. Like, yeah, well, I look fabulous anyway. Fuck you. It's fucking brilliant. It is absolute money. Oh my God, I'm exhausted just talking about it. It was
so good.
It was special. This is really special. This is the stuff that legends are made of. When we think about Vince McMahon and when we excuse all the horrible stuff and we really talk about the hilarity of the man, this is 101 Vince. It's utterly incredible. Like,
it's genuine. This is who he is as a man as well. Like, cross-dressing's funny, making people strip is hilarious, and mocking Bischoff for going grey, you little cunt. It's exactly like that's his feeling. It's just genuine. This is Vince McMahon, just being himself, like breaking kayfabe, but just being the man. It's fucking great.
Put your button it up, you slut.
He's probably been dressing Coach up as a woman for years in backstage anyway, just to humiliate him and emasculate him.
I can see Pat Patterson at the back just fapping over this entire process. He's just loving it. It was
amazing. I love
it's special, ladies and gentlemen. We'll ensure that you see it. It's really special. For the World Tag Team Championships, after that, I was knackered. So nothing was going to make me happy after this. La Resistance defend the tag team championships, against Edge and Benoit. And of course, we kind of all know how this is going to work out with the trajectory of Edge. So yeah, they have a reasonable tag team affair, actually. La Resistance definitely improving now that they've gotten rid of Rene Dupree. He's obviously just running around as the French tickler on SmackDown. So here we are with Sylvain Grenier and Rob Conway. Not too bad, but you've got obviously these workhorses in Edge and Chris Benoit, and especially Chris Benoit, who ultimately ends up doing the lion's share of the work and winning the tag team championships by himself in another shocker. I thought I was surprised enough when Shelton Benjamin won. But yeah, Benoit wins the tag titles after Edge fucks off. Which means that technically Edge and Benoit are tag team champions, even though Edge leaves after about 5 minutes and doesn't come back and is seen allegedly leaving the arena. But yeah, mid-card filler involving two of the greatest wrestlers to ever come out of Canada. Congratulations.
It was like an all-Canadian affair, but it was like Benoit and Edge defending the honour of America versus the French. It was so weird.
because he sang "Oh Canada," and he sang pretty much the whole thing. And I loved it, personally. All I could think about was Team Canada from TNA, by the way. I was just like, yeah, Petey Williams and Scott D'Amore and hockey sticks, go fuck yourselves. Like, I just thought it was great fun. What makes me laugh is like the crowd's like, fucking boo, fucking hate Canada, fuck you, yeah, Chris Benoit and Edge, woo, yeah, Canadians, woo. It's like, you fucking idiots, absolute idiots.
Team Canada, World Police. It's fucking... Yeah, the match is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually okay. And as you say, La Resistance have improved, markedly from when we were seeing them kind of 3-4 months ago. They're in a lot better position now. Edge leaves. Benoit manages to win it on his own with the crossface, like the absolute rabid Wolverine that he is. It was actually pretty good. And Edge has driven off. Has anyone ever actually left the arena when they've driven off in the middle of a show? Has that ever actually happened? Where it's like, oh, they're gone. They actually are gone. Shit, that would be surprising. That would be an amazing twist if someone actually stayed gone. But instead, we're not going to get what stays gone. We're going to get more sex.
Yeah. Now this is something else. I honestly thought
do you feel uncomfortable? You don't want to watch women get changed live on TV? What?
I actually kind of enjoyed it. I got to be honest. So Christy versus Carmella. No, not her. So Christy is, some people might remember as Christy Hemme, the winner of the Diva Search 2004, and it has to be said is exceptional in every sense. Wow. Anyway, now that we've got that out of the way.
She's willing to do anything to make the fans happy.
She rather famously sat in a pie, and The Rock got very aroused by this whole premise. So I remember The Rock met them all.
Did you hear the commentary as the match started, where JR said, in the Diva Search, they didn't actually get any wrestling training, right?
No wrestling training. Jerry Law's like, who cares about wrestling training?
Completely shows up Vince McMahon's plan. We're going to enter into the women's division and not train them to wrestle. Fucking money.
Incredible. This is weird because the idea is that obviously, what match are they going to be in? An aerobics match? Yeah, aerobics. Evening gown or a lingerie pillow fight. Talk about staggered. 57% of the vote goes to lingerie pillow fight. I love the fact that 10% of people voted for aerobics. It's like 10% of people just going, whoa.
JR was incensed on his podcast as well, which was done in 2019. What kind of people were voting for an aerobics challenge? God damn it. Jesus, JR, chill out, mate. He's watching it again. He's watching it back, just furious.
DDP yoga as well. Shut the fuck up, JR.
Oh, wouldn't it have been amazing if they did the aerobics challenge and DDP came? It'd been amazing.
That should be the next one. Should reboot it. Instead of aerobics, should be DDP yoga, mate. So it's the lingerie pillow fight. But first, we get to watch women in what Jonathan Coachman calls see-through screens. That's a lie. You see their shadows in front of the light.
Silhouette.
Don't get me wrong, it's pretty hot, to be fair, especially Christy Hemme, who is definitely hammered it up for the lights. But it takes
the old playgirl, fucking Playboy Bunny of the Year, doesn't know where to stand in the light so that people can see her tatty bojangles. I'm not having that, mate.
Yeah, even Coach was like, oi, get in front of the light, you slut. He's so angry.
Yeah, he is. You know the Vince is screaming in his ear, I can't see her pussy, get her closer.
Where's her vulva? You get her in the middle right fucking now.
I need to see
make you wear an even bigger dress.
I want to see the shadow of China's clit dick immediately. Get her close.
I want to see X-Pac smashing in that lamp. Get in there. It just, oh dear, unbelievable. And Christy Hemme takes 20 minutes to get changed.
It was longer than any match on the card. Was Christy Hemme teasing everybody? Fucking
the first
ridiculous.
5 minutes were great, and then you could see that she was like, "Oh shit, I'm supposed to be ready." You could see her panicking, couldn't you? It was
coach is literally going, "Yeah, we're gonna have to start the match." They just ring the bell and start.
Yeah, they ring the bell. They even changed the music just to kind of get her to get a fucking move on, because
fucking end of an Oscars speech, weren't it? Just trying to hurry her off stage. Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, when she comes out, I'm like, oh, mama. Christy Hemme, for me, is one of the hottest women ever. Like, I'm like, oh, my Lord. Like, yeah, redhead, check. An arse that could crush walnuts, check. It's unbelievable.
Big old baps as well. Big old baps.
Yeah, she is a specimen. Yeah, although I did lose a little bit of interest when she ended up having a love affair with Lance Hoyt in TNA. That's always going to kill you off. Also, Christy Hemme, poor girl. You think it gets better for her after this? It doesn't. She goes to TNA and she's engaged in a rivalry. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, Billy Gunn. Thank you. So Billy Gunn and Road Dogg have this rivalry where they basically hate. So Christy Hemme comes out and says about, just on a tangent because this match is terrible. It's not a match. Christy Hemme talks about how, women have given so much to wrestling, like China and stuff. Billy Gunn comes out, calls her a slut, and then slaps her on the arse, picks her up, and drags her off. And that, apparently, is TNA in a nutshell. Vince Russo, ladies and gentlemen. And then, every single time Christy Hemme tries to get a man to fight for her honor, they get beaten up by the plucky face chauvinists that are the James Gang. Hooray!
Was this on? This was do you remember this? We covered, didn't we, for Manic Mondays, maybe last year? TNA Lockdown, I think 2007. And they had, like, Billy Gunn being a complete dick to Christy Hemme on that pay-per-view as well. Yeah, mental. Go back and listen to it.
Yeah, go back and listen to it. But yeah, ultimately, Christy Hemme versus Carmella, who is the most sexless playmate I've ever seen. There's probably a reason why you're no longer there. Weird. No offense.
She's refusing.
Stagnant.
She's like, I'm modelled for Playboy. I am the playmate of 2004. But I'm not wrestling in lingerie for these people. And it's like, hang on, like, this is really confusing for the public. Like, you're just saying that to be a heel. Because fans at the time are like, if you're not going to wrestle in your underpants, you can fuck off. It's ridiculous. But Carmella number one, and the highlight of this match, basically, is Christy Hemme showing that Carmella number one had, like, the chicken fillet, boob fucking expanders in stuffing
and launches
her bra.
it into the crowd, at which point a massive melee involves. You can see at the bottom of the screen.
Sweatless fucking stripper glitter covered fucking chicken fillets.
It's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and as everybody who is associated with this podcast will know, Dexter Critchman is from Wisconsin, as is a large amount of his very interesting and backwards friends. And I'm pretty sure at least one of them was in there sniffing away.
Probably thought it was an actual chicken fillet and tried to cook it for dinner or some shit. We don't have any food around here.
He's like charging back on, like, halfway through the pay-per-view, there's one hillbilly from Wisconsin in a truck ferociously driving home with this chicken fillet breast enhancement. And he gets home and he's like, honey, we're going to eat like kings tonight. Oh my.
Normally we just get the chicken feathers. We can't afford the meat.
I like the fact we just turned this into a slacking off contest for hillbillies. That's how terrible it was. It's something. There's also
wins. Yay.
Yeah, she does, and also she gets hungry bum. For
my God, she just keeps picking her fucking clothes out of her anus throughout. Jesus Christ, my sphincter is starving.
You can just, Vince McMahon's sphincter was probably starving. Why you can just hear him in a headset. Hungry bum. Say something more about sluts, Jerry. Oh my God.
Jerry, say that her rectum is fucking ravenous. Ravenous rectum.
I could just see Pat Patterson's next to him in Gorilla going, perhaps we could have like a male either. Shut up, Pat. This is for the men. God damn.
Jesus. 2 minutes long this was. Less than 2 minutes long. There was so many feathers in the fucking ring afterwards. I felt so bad for whoever had to sweep up after the fucking match.
Yeah, this was the match where Lawler said he experienced personal growth.
That was the personal growth statement. He was growing throughout this fucking show.
Turns around and goes, good, you need some of that. What does that even mean?
Mate, I don't know if he says he needs a boner or if he actually needs to personally grow, because he's a child.
He's like, do you know what? You need some T+. Just
you know what you need? Blue Chew. Speaking of Blue Chew, fucking segue into the advert. Fucking amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely terrible, but, Christy Hemme, 5 stars. World Heavyweight Championship time. Triple H defends the World Heavyweight Championship against HBK. I had forgotten that there was another match after this, and when I looked at the fucking timer and it said 2 hours and there was still 50 minutes left, I thought, oh, you can fuck right off. I was furious. I was like, I am not watching another 45-minute HBK Triple H loving. Thankfully, I was rescued because of the storyline. So HBK, with a legitimate meniscus tear, goes out there and has a pretty decent match, it has to be said, at least for my money. I know you weren't hot on it. I thought, considering the guy could literally barely walk, I thought he put in a hell of a fucking shift. I think this really sums up why Shawn Michaels is so good. But Triple H ultimately retains because that bastard Edge, that son of a bitch, he comes down and he spears HBK. The referee should have seen it, really. It was pretty much right in front of him, but never mind. It is what it is. And HBK ultimately is thwarted and loses his opportunity to become World Heavyweight Champion because of the aforementioned rated R superstar. Triple H, hooray! Still your World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah. So considering the context that Shawn Michaels is legitimately injured, this match is fantastic. It's quarter of an hour long. Shawn gets in a lot of offense. They sell the knee as well, like ridiculously. Like the amount that he actually has his knee worked on, considering he's got a legitimate injury, is fucking insane. So, in the context, it's fantastic. My problem with it is he shouldn't be out there in the first place, because if you take the context of a genuine knee injury away, the match isn't that good. It's okay at best. It's not a pay-per-view level match. It's not a match after they've just had a fucking Hell in a Cell match. Like, they've culminated their rivalry, and then you get this afterwards. It's a damp squib. But it should never have been the match. They should have fucking rigged it and had Benoit go out there and Triple H finally overcome Benoit, or, give Edge the opportunity. But obviously it serves a purpose of setting up future storylines, serves the purpose of Edge's heel turn, but yeah, I just didn't want to see the match. When you're looking at it like, I don't want to see Triple H versus Shawn Michaels again. I'm so bored of this rivalry. It's fucking awful. But yeah, with the context that he's got a bad knee injury, from that context, Shawn Michaels is an absolute trooper, a soldier, a warrior. But Triple H wins, and I just struggle to care, to be honest. I've seen too much of it, saturated by this rivalry in 2004.
Yeah, I must admit, for what it was, I was actually kind of impressed. Like, I really admired the selling of the match. I really enjoyed the story that was told. And ultimately, because it was only about 15 minutes long, I actually quite liked it. This is how their other matches should have gone. I actually thought, despite the fact that he was severely injured, this was probably one of the best matches I've seen between the two, just because of what it meant. There was Shawn Michaels' masterclass in selling. His ability to sell, and the way he was screaming at Mike Yoda, speaking to him in his first name, saying, Mike, please don't stop this match. Please do not, screaming at him, please do not stop this match. I was really invested in that, but the problem is the match, despite being pretty good for what it is still hamstrung by the injury, and, from a technical standpoint, it's not a very good match. It's more, it's a masterpiece in storytelling and psychology, and if you're basing your 5-star ratings or whatever you have, or Jinders or whatever, on, just the storytelling aspect, it's very high, but I have to grade it across all notions, and I've given it 3 out of 5, which I thought was quite reasonable. I thought it was good. I didn't hate it at all. I was quite happy to watch it. Because I honestly thought, oh, Jesus Christ, I've had enough of these two. And you're right, I don't want to fucking see this again. But I actually thought, if you're going to end it, this is quite a nice way to do it. Shawn Michaels' injury, he almost overcame it. He almost took the belt off of, his long-time friend turned evil rival. And ultimately, this leads to a very nice rivalry between Edge and Shawn Michaels, or at least we hope so. And, you can't really say fairer than that. Edge versus Shawn Michaels far more appetizing to watch than another Triple H Shawn Michaels match. So, yeah.
They should have...
decent.
It almost felt like this should have been the match at the beginning of the rivalry, and then accelerate it to the street fight, and then accelerate it to the Hell in a Cell. But it's been such a weird year. They had a street fight. I think it was Royal Rumble or whatever. They had the fucking street fight. It started off with bludgeoning and blood. Then we had the Benoit stuff, and then we had the Hell in a Cell. And then Triple H went away from him for a little while because he was injured, and we're back to it again. I was like, oh my God, it's been all year. It's been all year. This was just the
Go
first,
away.
like, straight up singles wrestling match. Like, everything else has been either multi-man or gimmick. Like, it was really odd from that standpoint to see, okay, now we're just going to go and have a wrestling match. Do that first, you dick!
I mean, to put it in context, their first big match at this blood rivalry was 2 years ago at SummerSlam. SummerSlam 2002. That's way too long. Like, come on,
dragging it out.
wind it in. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not Rock and Austin, and what made Rock and Austin special was less is more. So, you know what? People say, like, oh, the great rivalries. If you look at all the great rivalries, they only had 2 or 3 great matches or great shows. I mean, Bret and Austin had one of the greatest rivalries of all time. They had 2 pay-per-view matches of relevance. That was it. So, you know, that says, or one of those was at Survivor Series 96, the other at WrestleMania 97. You know, you don't need to saturate people, and you wonder why people hated Triple H. It's not just because he was the master of doom and squashing everybody with his big old shovel, but it was also the fact that, you know, he was just saturating people with the same crap all the time. I would have liked, Triple H was never that bad a wrestler. He was actually a great heel and a great wrestler, but I don't want to see him wrestling the same guy 15 times in a year. No need for it. And also, stop wrestling all your mates all the time. You know, Shawn Michaels is incredible, but I don't want to see you wrestling like Orton and fucking, you know, God knows, X-Pac and all these people. You just think, oh, no. Like, you had the audacity to bring back Kevin Nash, like, fucking, 10 years later, and him and CM Punk, and, oh, my God, piss off. Awful, absolutely awful. But ultimately, a nice little cap on what has been an exhaustive rivalry between 2 wrestlers. That leads in nicely to our final match, the main event. Bit of a surprise, actually. Randy Orton versus Ric Flair. What match will they have? Jeez, I fucking wonder. Hey, what was it? Submission match? Yeah, all right then. Course. Hey, Randy Orton, that well-known submission specialist, and Ric Flair, who ultimately, I mean, that's not too bad because ultimately Ric Flair is all about the figure 4, so you could argue that point and say, well, you know, that would favour Ric Flair, but come on. And the other option, I think, was last man standing, but it was always going to be the steel cage match, and I have to say, I really love this match. Not only was it a great fun match, it was also quite short, which made it better for me. It was a real, you know, this felt like I was watching a legitimate fight because it didn't go too long. It was 2 guys, they smacked the shit out of each other, and ultimately Randy Orton hits him out of nowhere. We're really getting over the RKO at this point. This is before it becomes an exhaustive meme as well, so it's still quite exciting to see it. And it's a good, violent, sort of 10-ish minutes inside a cage. They batter each other. They're both fucking violently red. The Crimson Masks are out. Very strange to see somebody bleed well before Ric Flair in a match, which is always a bit random. But ultimately, really fucking great. And you could tell Ric Flair had his working boots on. He wanted to make sure Orton came out of this looking even better than he already did. And he did. He did a great job of that. I was really impressed with Ric Flair's ability in this match. For a guy who's at this point 55, 56, that's incredible to go into a steel cage and have a match with a guy who's 24 in Randy Orton, who's at the prime of his physical peak, you know, and he goes out there and has this kind of quality match with a lovely little story told, and then ultimately that lovely image at the end of them shaking hands and Orton trying to hold him up, because there's that respect, because even though I hate you, I have to respect the fact that you've done something really special here. And you know what? Ric Flair's famous phrase, you know, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And ultimately, that's what Randy Orton did. He went out there and beat the man and had this incredible steel cage match. And this is probably one of the more forgotten and underrated steel cage matches I've seen in recent memory. I think they're a bit overdone and a bit hokey, but this was phenomenal. Really enjoyed this main event and really, really appreciated just how far Ric Flair has come, you know, because we're talking about a guy whose prime was probably 20, 30 years before this, and ultimately he's still able to go out there and, you know, really garner money and have a fantastic main event with a young talent in Randy Orton. So massive kudos to both men. Gave it 4 stars, thought it was that good.
I really enjoyed it. You know, I've never sat there and said, oh, you know, Ric Flair is my favourite wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. His matches were quite formulaic a lot of the time. Like, quite often he had the same match quite regularly. But when you put him in a gimmicky type match like this, actually, I feel you get a lot of the best out of Ric Flair in a weird way. Because you know you're not going to get a great wrestling match in a steel cage, and that's not what you want. It's not what it's there for. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was in a lot of ways, it felt very similar to the Cactus Jack versus Randy Orton match from Backlash earlier in the year. You know, this was a legend saying, right, come into my environment and, kind of putting him over and showing, Randy Orton to be a real tough bastard, basically. As you say, kind of winning with the RKO, coming out of nowhere when that was still something that was fresh and new was great. JR kind of starting to coin the phrase at this point, which was, would go on to become a cliche and a meme, as you say. I thought it was really good, as you say, kind of a good use of blood in the match. It actually felt consequential. There's too much bleeding in this era for me, particularly JBL over on the other brand, but this was a good use of it. Just really enjoyed it. And I quite like the line that JR used as well, surprise, in the match of, it wouldn't surprise me if Ric Flair has had more steel cage matches than Randy Orton has had matches. I thought that was actually a really good way. Yeah, just a really good way to sell the odds, basically, being against Randy Orton, which, and he's going in there with, at the end of the day, an old man. Like, the odds shouldn't be stacked against him in a kind of sporting competition or fight scenario, but really well sold. I thought it was excellent. Really, really enjoyed it. It wasn't overly long. I think it's about 10 minutes or so, and that's about the right length for this kind of a match. It didn't go so long where you're like, okay, it's got boring. You weren't saturated with it. Good length of match to go home on, and a good moment where Ric Flair's puts over Randy Orton and Randy hugs him and he's quite over the top with his emotion of it, and like it ends up with Rick sort of looking at him like, all right, back off, mate. That's enough.
Wind it in, mate. That'll be enough.
All right, don't be gay. You can imagine that's going through Rick's fucking mind. Gay.
Vince is like, stop hugging! God damn it! I hate
too much man love. Bring Christy Hemme back out here immediately. Bust her open.
Get Coachman in a dress.
Get the camera back on Coach. It's but I really, really enjoyed it. But it was a really good way to end the show. And again, it's rare that you don't have the the world title match main eventing the show. Instead, you had the kind of big blood rivalry. And again, it shows how they were really, in this period, doing everything they could to put over Randy Orton as being kind of the next big star for the show. Like, right, okay, we had him have a relatively pointless 1 month title reign and drop it back to Triple H. But, he still want to kind of showcase him as looking strong, and this was a great way of doing it. Evolution was the vehicle to put Randy Orton over in the same way as like the Nation of Domination was for The Rock. And, this was essentially, another kind of coming out party for Randy. And we called it the Year of Orton. And this was another kind of real big reminder as to why this was kind of a real coming out year for Randy.
Yeah, you can really smell the process of getting your friends over. Triple H is like, the fact that even Triple H was like, yeah, sure, let these two guys have the main event. There's a lot of respect there, especially for Ric Flair. One of the last times I remember Ric Flair having a main event match, to be honest, in his entire run in WWE. Even like, his retirement match, that wasn't the main event. So it was quite cool to see Ric Flair actually close a pay-per-view as well. I really like this, and ultimately there's two things I'm really taking from this year is we're getting very close to the end. I think we've only got a couple of shows left, and yeah, there's obviously Randy Orton, the push for him, and I think ultimately this is 16 years ago, and Randy Orton is going into WrestleMania as arguably the hottest property, isn't he, with his rivalry with Edge and what he did to Edge on Raw just a few weeks ago. So it's amazing to think Randy Orton is still looks like he's in peak, condition and everything. Ultimately, he's quite a formulaic person, and I feel like we've probably seen the best of him when he was younger, but he's still got a lot to offer, and he's definitely a legend at this point, as opposed to simply a legend killer. But the other thing I'm really taking from this year, actually, is just how good a worker Ric Flair was. That's really surprised me, in the same way that Tajiri jumped out at me and Rhino jumped out at me in 2001. Ric Flair's jumped out at me in 2004 and given me a real appreciation. If he can do this kind of stuff now, I'm now starting to go back and watch stuff from the 70s and 80s, the NWA classics, the steel cage matches with Dusty Rhodes, and realizing, okay, so the wrestling's not world class or Daniel Bryan levels of technicality, but what I am seeing is an incredible storyteller and a psychologist of wrestling, and this is why Ric Flair is regarded as one of the greats of all time, because of this level of work, because he's able to take Randy Orton, a guy who, like you say, Ric Flair's an old man, Randy Orton is 24, Randy Orton should be battering murdering the shit out of him. But at no point did I sit there and watch this and think this is unbelievable. Like, there's no way that Randy Orton should be even close to, jobbing to a Ric Flair. This felt quite believable. This felt like a Ric Flair who was like, you know what, yeah, I am old, but I can chop the living shit out of you, and I'm a master of the steel cage. I'm a master of my discipline. I know what it needs to be done to be able to beat someone like Randy Orton in a steel cage. And yeah, I don't know, just another time where, because when I was younger, I was like, Ric Flair sucks. He's old, I don't care. Whereas now I've kind of got this real appreciation for the quality of him as a wrestler and the quality of his performance as a psychologist. So yeah, massive kudos. This pay-per-view was a weird one for me, wrapping it up. I honestly thought it was going to be fucking terrible, and it should have been terrible, but it was the kind of good terrible, like the carny nonsense and the fun I had watching this meant that even though it should have been a good show, it ended up being really entertaining to me. This is one of the most fun pay-per-views I watched of the entire year, mostly because Vince McMahon went utterly spare halfway through, and this was just magic, utter magic. But there was some really good stuff here, like in terms of the carny stupidity, and I just can't, I feel dirty for saying it, I can't get enough of this Kane and Dead Babies rivalry. Like, it's not, obviously I'm not for any of the, the methods or the ethics of this rivalry, but the way it's been delivered and the way you just can't take it seriously has actually made it unbelievably entertaining. And I think if you look at Taboo Tuesday, it's not a very good pay-per-view, but it's a fucking hysterical one.
I enjoyed this pay-per-view more than I thought I was gonna, and it's because there were brilliant moments. I think because there was such fucking stupidity around the Snitsky Kane thing, that the build into that, it was so bad that it was fucking hilarious. It was so bad that you had to laugh at it. You're not laughing with it, you're laughing at it because it's so outlandish and stupid. Like, it just should, who the hell came up with it? Like, we're going to do a face turn for the rapist, for his rape victim starting to love him. It's just like Stockholm Syndrome made kayfabe. It's fucking insane. It's great. Randy Orton Ric Flair was really fucking good. The Edge stuff was really good as well. And like, it was just the segment of Vince McMahon stripping Coach, mocking Bischoff for getting his head shaved by Eugene, was so, it shouldn't be entertaining, but it's amazing. Like, all right, the women's stuff is terrible and horrific, and like Jerry Lawler comes off as a massive nonce. And Jericho, Shelton Benjamin was massively underwhelming, and I was just saturated by Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and they did a very good job in the circumstances, but was saturated by it. The tag match was fine as well. The Edge stuff again kind of made it better, but it was just a really weird pay-per-view that I shouldn't have liked really any of it, but there just kept being these little moments that pulled me back in, like the promo video for the Kane Snitsky thing was so damn bad but brilliant. It was so offensive but funny that I loved it. And fucking, it actually became so carny with the Christy Hemme like changing stuff, like where they were then like playing the music to hurry her up, that became entertaining. And like just coaches, just that Vince coach stuff was just so damn good that it saved the pay-per-view. It breathed life in where it just didn't deserve to have life breathed into it. A bit like Lita's fetus. And the the Ric Flair Randy Orton match was just a great finisher as well. It was a great closer. So it's one of those up and down pay-per-views, but there's just these moments where you're going, I know I should hate this. I know I should be smarky and politically correct and liberal and say this is terrible. But I really enjoyed it, and I hate myself for enjoying it in a lot of ways, but it was just great. I hated some of the stuff I should do. It was offensive with the women and stuff, but I can watch Vince berate Jonathan Coachman and tell him to take off his goddamn pants every day for the rest of my life. It was so good. It's one of my most fun ever segments. And Yeah, it's a really weird pay-per-view, very up and down. It's probably 3 out of 5, which is better than about half of the pay-per-views we've watched in 2004, and not because of the wrestling content, but because of the carny bollocks. Oh, wrestling's amazing.
Yeah, I'm kind of in full agreement with everything you've just said. Like, the carny shenanigans, they just made it so much fun. That's it as far as Taboo Tuesday goes, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us basically fap over Vince McMahon for an hour, and that's probably, as far as we're concerned, the most impressions we've ever done of him in a calendar hour. Absolutely ridiculous. Can't believe it. But yeah, ultimately, that moves us on to Survivor Series. I did have a joke actually written down, so I might as well throw it out because we've offended everybody else. I forgot to mention it. During the tag team match, I also happened to notice that Benoit was obviously in a 2-on-1 scenario, and at one point my brain just thought, that won't be the last time that Chris Benoit deals with 2 people by himself. So yeah, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to Manic Mondays, and Steve Neal, thank you very much for joining us for Taboo Tuesday.
No worries, mate. It's just what I really was expecting to hate this, and I turned out actually quite enjoying myself. So, thank you very much. For the Survivor Series up next, one of the big 4. So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, good card in that one as well. Good strong card, so it'll probably be terrible, but we shall persevere nonetheless, and obviously cover Survivor Series. Survivor Series 2004 is coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, so if you've got the opportunity or you've got a little bit of time spare, check it out and let us know your thoughts. But ultimately, we hope you're enjoying the ride that is 2004. Only 2 more stops before we get out of this crazy era, and we move on to the next one, which will be announced in due course. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to the Wrestle Plug, and we'll catch you very soon for more nonsense from Manic Mondays.